All right, so my subscriber and friend Terry just stopped by and dropped off some more stuff. He's slowly cleaning out his shop. he's retiring from working on the cars and stuff, but anyway, showed up with a bunch of goodies again, and there's even more over there. I'll show you here in a second. But I officially call him Uncle Terry because he's always giving me goodies, and it's awesome because he gives me stuff that I need. You know what I mean? He had this. And I always prefer the OEM ones, the originals, because I heard somebody had said, may have been on a forum, that these do not fit very good at all, the reproductions. And I think the one I have, if it's the same side, I can't remember which side I have, but I have a pair of these, but the one of them is really, really crusty. And I'm afraid when I blast it, it's probably going to be Swiss cheese. So that's awesome that I got that. And then he had this core support, and there's a piece on this baffle that I had no idea. I have never seen this on all the 55s that I've ever messed with. I've never seen one. But so he had this side piece right here. This is the baffle that bolts to the radiator core support, and it had this piece here on it, and I was like, what is that? And he goes, well, it's another piece that he said people usually don't put them on, and I have never seen one of these. So I would have lost a money bet, and I have had a ton. I bet I've had 15 55 Chevys, and I have never seen that. But this goes to the core support, and this is your filler piece, I guess, to the chassis. That is awesome. Never seen that before. So I'm still learning, you know, like original stuff like that. And then he had a core support here that is very, very minty. It's not even pitted in the bottom with craters in them like they usually have. And this is for a 55, and it's a V8, and it is freaking awesome. That one of mine is really, really crusty, pitted, so I was going to have to do some, you know, high build primer and block it out. But that one there I think will blast clean and work just fine, so I'm going to use this core support. And then my friend Scott Smith, Terry brought this stuff, and because I had told him we'd talked like a month ago, and he said he had some 68 Chevelle stuff, and my friend Scott Smith, who you've probably seen on some of my salvage yard videos at Perky's, he is working on a 68 Chevelle two-door hardtop, and I think some of the stuff is new, and I think, like, I know this piece is used, but that's the windshield trim. This looks like two new in the package for the grill. Looks like the upper and lower for the grill. But anyway, I think this is the upper for the windshield, and it's a used one, but I don't think he has, I know he doesn't have this piece. I think that's what he told me at Perky's that day. Anyway, there's some stuff I'm going to give Scott. And anyway, that's kind of cool because this one I like creased it when I was pulling the core sport stuff out at Perky's salvage. It creased it, and I hammered and dollied it out, but it's still got a little wonkiness to it. But there's a perfect one right there that Terry dropped off, so I don't even have to mess with this one anymore. I just use that one. And then he had this because I was telling him I wanted to put some old Flowmaster mufflers on my car because I like Flowmasters. You know, a lot of the cars I built was in the 90s, and Flowmaster was kind of popular back then, and it's just, I just like the sound on a cammed up small block. So he had one brand new 40 series 2.5 inch muffler. So all I need to do now is buy one instead of two. So that is awesome. And then he has a flywheel cover, and I don't even have one on my hardtop. I never have put one on, but there's a chrome one. And then here is a trunk seal, trunk weather stripping seal, brand new in the package, which I do not have for this car. Now I do. And then he brought, let's see, it looks like the master cylinder. No, that's the slave cylinder, isn't it? I don't even know, actually. Anyway, that's for the clutch. And then he brought these are brand new. So these are for the park lights, turn signals, if you will, for the front. And these things are like 40 or 50 bucks in the catalogs for a pair of those. And I didn't have those for this car, so now I do. Man, that guy, I'm telling you, he shows up with stuff, and like everything he shows up with, I always need it. It's really strange, but I love it. So thanks again, Uncle Terry. He brought this for a 55. That's actually for a convertible. And then here is a 57 Chevy front fender patch for the back of the fender for driver's side. And I don't have a 57, but anyway, I'll put it up in the attic, and if I ever wind up with a 57, I'll have it. They brought all this paint, and this is really awesome because he brought some single stage urethane white, 2 gallons of it, that was mixed in 2019. It's going to be still good, but this is urethane single stage white, and it's pretty bright white. And I was wanting to paint my Monte Carlo SS project white, single stage, so now I don't have to spend the money on the paint. And he has the hardener and the reducer for it, so that is way cool. He brought me some direct to metal primer, which I used a lot of it on Steve's car and never charged him for it, and I'm going to end up needing that for spotting stuff on my wife's car. And then there's a few gallons of reducer. Some of them's used, you know, that one's probably about a half, but I always need urethane reducers, always. And this is more urethane reducer. Here is a brand new quart of Eastwood ceramic chassis black satin. He said he didn't have the hardener for that, but I can always get it. And then he had a quart of this gloss black Rust-Oleum. And then he brought these, which I already brought these in a while ago, but this is 2 containers full of grade 8 fine thread standard hardware, which I'll be needing for ball joints and A-arms on a Tri-5 Chevy. So there's smaller stuff and then there's bigger stuff, but that is awesome because fine thread is what I usually can't find around town. All I ever find is coarse thread stuff. But especially on a Tri-5 Chevy, the hardware for the A-arms and stuff I think is 7/16. And when I go to my local places around here, they skip 7/16 for whatever reason. They have the size under and the size above, but they don't have 7/16 hardware. So I usually have to order the stuff for the A-arms, the lower A-arms I should say. That is awesome. There's lock washers, nuts. I mean, golly, that guy is just awesome, man. He's just awesome. And he brought these, which I'd never even heard of. And this is really neat because I'm gonna put these on one of these for sure on my wife's car. So this is this is for valve stems. And this is a tire pressure monitoring system, and it's basically remote, I guess. But this plugs into your cigarette lighter, and it has a digital readout, and you can even use like a phone charger plugged into it. And these screw onto your valve stems, and this is what tells you what air pressure you have in your tires. So how cool is that? He gave me 2 of those, so I'm definitely gonna put one on my wife's car. That'll be pretty handy on hers. But I'll end up using almost all that stuff. I mean, no doubt, well, if not all of it. The only thing I don't see anything that I have a use for like right now, but I know I probably will, is the Rust-Oleum. Now the Rust-Oleum farm and implement I use on my chassis. It's a low gloss black, and it looks just like a chassis black. Well, you can see it on Steve's car here. It's a little dusty, but that is the farm and implement. It's shot out of a gun. I don't brush that stuff on, but man, that's awesome. So now I need to take a picture of this stuff and text Scott and let him foam at the mouth a little bit. He's really into parts. He likes getting parts. So, and I do too. That's why we're the perfect salvage yard buddies. Anyway, guys, that's Terry's haul for today, and there's more. Well, Terry brought me this slave cylinder, and it's got a braided flex line on it, which is really, really cool. And I think I've already stuck it up there once, and it looks like it might be, oh no, it is too short. Dang it. I might be able to use that line though. I'll have to have that. I'm probably going to use a Wilwood master cylinder for the clutch anyway. A little small one. But, well, that's pretty cool, man. That, yeah, that line, I might end up using that. I have a lot of parts to fabricate on this car patches to build, basically. So fortunately, I had that 4-door that Randy brought me for parts. So I cut that piece out right there. This is out of the 4-door. And I'm gonna have to blast this, you know, make sure it's good and clean, and then I'll have to go back in and probably weld up a couple of them holes. I'm not using this whole thing, I'm just using a little spot of it. But this has to be patched. This has to be patched. This has to be patched. And I've got to cut off this upper section that's all rotted and mangled and replace it with one from another car. And then I've already put a patch in here and around the corner. I still need to finish grinding a couple more tack welds, but there's a spot of rust right here, there's a little hole right there, and there's some up here. So what I'd like to do is get some sheet metal and break it twice, because this is basically just a square channel going down here that way and then back up. So I'd like to build a whole new panel from here all the way up to there. So anyway, I mean, you know, I haven't blasted this yet. I've just cut brushed it, and you know, stuff keeps showing up, so I really need to get in here and blast this. I'm gonna have to go get blast media. I don't have enough. It's gonna make a mess, and if it rains, I can't do that either. But anyway, getting up here, this is what I'm talking about. This is like a C channel basically in there, and it looks pretty scaly, so it would probably be better for me to just replace that whole section with new. Now I've decided to go ahead and buy 2 new rockers for the car for a 2-door and put those in, because I'm going to have to use the one really good rocker off the 4-door to cut sections out of to use for the rear section lowers of the quarter panels, because I used a 4-door quarter. I cut down a door skin from a 4-door and put it on, but the 4-door is a door there, so there's no rocker piece to it. So I have to scab in a piece from the rocker. So I think that's going to be my best way of going. So anyway, lots of patching to do. And then I found something new that I hadn't paid attention to yet. So here is this is basically for strength for this piece here, because without the quarter on it, it's pretty flimsy. But this is a reinforcement piece for this, and this thing is crusted out. This thing is rotted, man. And I never noticed that before. And the end's a little bit rotty right there. So this is actually, it has a partial break in it. It's not completely 90, it's more like a 45-degree break. But anyway, it spot welds to the flange here on this. So this will have to be hand fabbed and replaced as well. I'm not leaving any of this stuff behind. I want it fixed. I want the rust fixed. And then everything will be coated, and it should last for decades. You know what I mean? But this is where I'm kind of out on the car, is there's a lot of patches to do. But this one back here, I'm gonna have to build from scratch. I mean, this is so intricate. This is like a curved section right here. This is curved right here. This is flat, but it kicks out and goes over. So I'll have to make this probably out of 3 pieces, and which I can do, and then I'll have to weld it all together, and then I'll have to go back and grind the welds and everything. So there's gonna be a lot of work, probably several hours just in this piece, maybe more than several, I don't know. But I've got the metal down there. All right, I had some brackets in there in my scrap metal stuff. These are like for a trans cooler or something. They're paper thin, and I'd never use them anyway. So I took them over to they have holes drilled in them, quite a few in a row. So I took them over to my sheet metal brake, and I bent it into a 90, and then I used my scotch disc on my angle grinder and cleaned the metal in a couple areas, and run a self driller down through one of the holes that's in the bracket. And what it is it's basically a, I don't know, a saddle, I guess. I don't know what you'd call that. It's when I remove this will go to this, because what I'm thinking about doing is actually cutting this here and cutting it here and taking this whole lower piece off. And the reason is it has this lower reinforcement plate right here, and I'm just kind of worried that if I try to get this off of this, that it might bend it and, you know, mess it up doing it on the car. Because I mean, I can move that, watch the distance there, see, I can move that away. So Basically, when I go to put it back in there, it'll set right up there. I'm putting it right back on, so whatever my cut line is, it'll go right back on with an 1/8 inch gap in between, which is perfect to fill full of weld anyway. So if I can remove this, I can actually blast this piece out in the yard, you know, up underneath and everything, and then I can hand fab the new part, plug weld it on off the car instead of having to climb up in there trying to get to it here, because the tip on my MIG's really big and I'm afraid it's going to hit this when I'm trying to plug weld it in there. I mean, it might not, but it would be difficult to grind it flush in there. I could do it, but it'd just be easier if this was on the, you know, off the car. So that's what I'm going to do. It's just more cutting of the car, and there's going to be lots more of it, so don't make me no difference. Okay, so I got the spot welds drilled out of this and got it off there, and man, let me tell you, this thing is interesting to say the least. So may have an issue because I can't find it in the catalogs. I really don't know what it's called either. I'm assuming it's some kind of reinforcement brace or something, but I can't find it. It's not in any of my catalogs, and all my Tri-5 parts catalogs are really old. I think my Danchuck is from 2017 or 18, so maybe 16, I don't even know. But I can't find this in any of the pictures in the catalogs, so I was hoping they were on there and I'd just buy them, because I wouldn't have imagined that these would be that expensive. So I'm gonna have to make one, and as intricate as this is going to be a little bit on the difficulty level for me, not having a full-blown metal shop to, you know, with every metal working tool you can buy. I'm pretty sure I can do it. I'm going to have to hammer form it, so I'm just going to have to get started on it, I guess. But this thing's kind of uniquely shaped, S-shaped, Z-shaped, whatever you want to call it, but it's not quite flat on the top either. It's angled a little bit right here, but it's got some flanges hanging down. It's wide at the front, gets thin at the back, so has holes drilled in it for clearance for the belt line molding clips. But anyway, I'm gonna see what I can get built here. All right, that was a couple-hour job making that, but that was a lot of fine detail fitting and, you know, putting it on the belt line piece that I cut off the quarter and retweaking and bending and hammer and dolly, and golly, sick of it. So I went ahead and put holes all the way through, and that way, because they don't have any holes up here, and I'm just kind of worried that maybe one of the belt line clips would hit my made piece in case it's not set at the correct, in the exact spot it's supposed to be, you know what I mean? So I just went ahead and drilled holes all the way in it. It's better safe than sorry. But you can tell it has a hole here, and there's probably one here, and there's probably one here. But it was a mess, man, but I got it. I got that thing. I got it pretty dialed in. I blasted it, but that paint was kind of hard to get off there, and it's still remnants of it, but it's good enough. I mean, if it's stuck that good, it can just stay on there, you know what I mean? But I'm happy with it, man. That'll work. That's just about a mirror image part. I mean, pretty damn close, you know what I mean? Especially for doing it right here on the ground in the driveway. So I guess I can go ahead and weld that to the belt line piece. Actually, I'm going to weld through prime the bottom of that. I blasted this in the bottom of that. I'm going to go ahead and weld through prime these parts, and when those dry, I'm going to clamp them up in there and burn them on, melt them together. Alright, so I can see why they didn't put holes, clearance holes all the way down through there. It's actually closer over here. It's fairly close there, and it's getting a little bit further away there, but these are really far away. So, except the end of that one looks kind of close, but I've still got to clamp this up here some more. I'm going to put a couple of tacks and move my clamps. But I went ahead and weld through. I blasted both parts, and I went ahead and weld through primed up in there, and then weld through primed the top of this piece, this flange side, and a little bit of the other side. But I didn't weld through prime the entire piece because I'm going to be putting etching primer on all the stuff that doesn't need the weld through primer. Basically, I don't want to waste it because I don't have very much left. I've got to stretch it as far as I can. But this is what I like to use. This is the U-Pole weld number 2, and this stuff's pretty decent. I've 3M has one, and it used to be prone to clogging real bad and spitting, and then I had a couple of them I went down and bought, and it would spit for a second or two and then nothing had happened. So I ended up taking it back, getting another one that's doing the same thing. I don't know if they were old or what, but since I've switched to this is only my second can of this though, but this stuff I'm pretty happy with. This is the stuff I'll continue to buy. And then when I'm doing little small stuff like this that won't really see, you know, UV light and from the sun and all that kind of stuff in this dark areas and behind things, I'm just using the self-etching primer in the aerosol can. This stuff actually sticks pretty well for an aerosol. I'm kind of impressed. If the surface is prepped good and wiped down, which I always wipe everything off. But I guess I'm going to drag the welder out here and get to tacking on this. But this piece can go in the trash can. That is foobar. All right, well, I got it. I got the brace piece welded to the belt line piece from the quarter. Then I went back and ground it, and anyway, I set it up in here and I cleaned the old paint off on the ends with the Scotch-Brite disc on my angle grinder, and then went back and I got to jump the tacks across, you know what I mean? I have to hold that MIG in an angle because it's an 1/8 inch gap there and an 1/8 inch gap there from the width of the cutoff wheel. But anyway, I got enough on there to hold it enough to where when I finally put the quarter on, and it'll end up getting fully welded by tacks. And I still need to climb inside the car and do the back side, but it is pretty much on there. It's up against my little saddles I made, and it's dead even. Everything's lined up perfectly. It's not like this is not too low and this is too high. When I put the metal pieces in, I like for them to be perfectly even. That way when it's ground, it looks nice. But anyway, that was a lot of work, man. That was I don't know how many hours is in that now, but I'm glad it's over. Golly. And most likely I'll have to build one over there, but at least now I've got an idea how to make it, so it won't take near as long to do the other side. But this is the old one, and that's the new one. So it worked out pretty good. I got the holes in it for clearance for the 210 belt line moldings, and like all this up in here, even the little lip up in here on the quarter, I blasted, like held the blaster up in there at an angle and got all that. But anyway, this was all cleaned with wax and grease remover, and weld through primer was shot up in there on the bare metal. And then that was before I put this piece on, but everything that's kind of sandwiched or, you know, up in there enough that you can't really get a coating on it, I did the weld through primer on. And then there's still quite a bit of bare metal on this, but I'm going to etch prime a lot of that. I'm trying to save my weld through primer, but I'm happy with it, man. It's not absolute perfect. I mean, it's nice. It's really, really nice. But it's definitely got its strength back in the panel now, and this is not going to be hiding under there, you know what I mean? That wouldn't last very much longer before it just completely fell off there. But man, I'm glad that's over. I'm right now thinking about cutting the other quarter panel off, because I talked about it In an earlier video, I talked about removing this quarter because I know there's going to be some structure damage from rust back up in here. Probably that baffle that goes up in there is probably going to be rusty as well. The wheel well is probably going to have rust on it. So I would like to go ahead and remove this, and that way I can get to all that up in there, and all the backside structure of the car will be, you know, patched and coated. But I've got this marked off. This is where I'm going to cut it, because I'll be putting this quarter back on. This quarter is not bad. It's just down here where two doors usually rust, and then back here it's crushed in. So this is going to get patched up, and I'm going to end up using a quarter panel section there, and then most of the lower section of the door skin will go in here. So, and then part of the four doors rocker for the bottom down here. So there'll be three different pieces from the four door going in, but welded in to make this a nice solid quarter again. But this back here is crushed in, and instead of going in and hammering and dollying all this out, this is a very difficult area to get nice because of, you know, the bead that's in it. I'm just going to cut it right up through here and down and put a piece out of the four door quarter in there. I'd rather butt weld and, you know, grind, and then you can usually get away if you get the panels evened up real nice and grind it without going down past the point of being flat, like over grind it where you got a ditch ground in it. If you can grind that pretty good, and the metal's butt welded good when you grind it, you can actually put the poly on here a couple of good heavy coats, and it'll block out, so, or close to it, you know what I mean? So to me, instead of beating all this stretched metal out and then having to shrink it, because there's going to be too much metal here in this area after all this is hammered and dollied back out, and so it'll have to be hammered out, shaped, heat shrunk, and then it'll have to probably take quite a bit of filler to get it, you know, really nice. So I'd rather just cut it out and be done with it, and I'm going to, because the quarter's already here, so might as well. But at least the rear section of the car will be, the structure on the inside will all be good, because at this point, you know, some guys would just patch up what's here, what they can get to. They'll just patch that up. They'll never remove the quarter to see what damage is behind there. So I kind of feel like doing it, you know, cutting it off. I'm going to make sure that I'm basically going to prolong the car's life for a couple more decades under its belt, in theory anyway.